You guys have really cool roles. You're just doing awesome stuff. I really am interested in the journey. You're running 76 Capital, you're Chief Investment Officer of the 49ers. A quick minute on how you got to where you got.
Well, happy to start. I mean, Scott, thanks, and Zeev and the whole crew here at Landmark, thanks for having me. And it's amazing to be here and talk about almost a 20-year journey of getting to where we are at 76 Capital today. Really this idea of always looking to invest in smart and nice entrepreneurs who wanted to change the world and do big things. So we do startup investing. We've been doing that for almost 20 years now. And really it's been great to sort of see all the different change in technology and now all the amazing things that are happening in sports, and it's exciting to be an investor in that.
I started my career out of business school, went into tech banking, so doing M&A, advisory, raising capital for tech companies. Got to know the ownership family of the 49ers, Jed York specifically, really through kind of personal connections, became very close friends for 15 years now. And it's really Jed's vision that kind of drove me to join the organization. I run the private investment and really direct investment arm of the family office that, among other things, obviously owns the San Francisco 49ers. Broad thesis, looking at opportunities where we can leverage our brand, resources, and really a unique set of assets that we have that we try to bring to bear to portfolio companies that we invest into.
Wayne, your investment criteria, what types of tech are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, so for us at 76 Capital, we're always we look for companies in the sports tech space. So whether that's technology that's being used in the physical sports, like whether that's football or basketball or baseball, we're actually looking for some football investments right now, looking for some things in soccer and some of the other physical sports. We're investors in the esports space. We really love what's happening right now in the amateur side of esports, where everyone else is sort of focusing on the professional side. And we're also big investors in the sports betting space. And one of the things that we do at 76 Capital is really, it's all about helping our entrepreneurs be successful, but also what we do. Try this one. And what we also do is we use our athletes who are involved with us. And we have something called the Athlete Venture Group, which is chaired by my partner. His name is Ryan Howard, who many of you know, the baseball player, played for the Phillies and is also now an analyst on ESPN. He'll be on Baseball Tonight, Sports Center. He'll actually be doing some games this year as well. But we also have this full athlete venture group that gets involved, that invests with us, that partners with us, that learns, that gets their hands dirty with the companies we get involved with. So that includes a number of professional athletes that use their same sort of passion and desire and drive and persistence that they were able to be so successful on the field. They bring that over into the business world and help our entrepreneurs be successful.
So I'm looking at the title here, Disruptive Tech, Digital Media. We added gaming and sports, very nice. Before we get into the sports betting piece, call it the degenerate elephant in the room, let's talk about what you guys are doing in the non-betting space. Something investment that you're excited about, a trend that you're seeing that you think is the future, again, in the non-betting realm. Brano, you can start, Wayne, you'll follow.
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. Look, our investment thesis is pretty broad. It's very opportunistic. Again, look for ways where we can add value beyond just writing checks, quite frankly. Capital is cheap these days, certainly within 10 square miles or where we're all sitting. What's exciting, I share Wayne's enthusiasm for amateur sports. I think it's a really interesting opportunity. Having two young kids at home that are not yet hitting the kind of the sports circuits, I do know though just how much of disposable income of each family goes to sports for their kids. So it's a huge market, huge opportunity, fractured, right? And so finding ways to play it is interesting. We invested in a company called Play Versus that's down in LA that kind of touches the amateur element as well as esports. It's a platform that addresses esports specifically at high school level, which we're really, really excited about. So amateur sport as a whole, I think, is a pretty interesting growth opportunity for us.
Well, I'll go away from sports for a second to a company that's based actually around here in Berkeley, California, and we just launched a fully robotic coffee shop And if you're able to just run out to Berkeley, go to the campus, go to the student center, and go to this place called B-Box, and you'll see a fully robotic coffee shop. Not just coffee, but everything from pastries and sandwiches. You can get it all, and it's made all by robots. So you're talking about machine learning and AI and some really amazing things. And we hope to put these B-Boxes not only just in student centers and in standalone restaurants, but we also could someday have them inside of stadiums and arenas as well. But it's really amazing to see the technology and to be able to train a robot to be able to not only just make really great coffee, but if it spills, it's got to know how to clean it up, and they do. And it's really incredible to see that and work with some really, really smart people that are doing that.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go right back to you, Wayne. For those in the room that don't have a feel for where the gold rush is going as we speak about sports betting, there's just been so much that has happened since last July, I believe, with the Supreme Court ruling. Can you just give us a quick primer or briefing on where we're at in terms of states, state by state, as legislatures adopt sports betting, and where we're going to go, and how quickly is this thing going to scale at a national level?
Yeah, Scott, so on May 14th of last year, the Supreme Court overturned a law that only enabled Nevada, the state of Nevada in the United States, to have sports betting. And once they overturned that law, states like crazy started to pass bills. Governors started signing bills to enable the different states to have sports betting. The first state that went live was Delaware, after Nevada, which was my home state, which is pretty cool to see that first bet and be there with the governor when he did that. There are 8 states now that are legal. New Jersey is kind of leading the pack, leading the way right now. They have mobile betting, which is, imagine in today's world, in 2019, that there are states that aren't allowing mobile betting, but it's all coming. They're leading the pack in that. Just right before I got on stage, Massachusetts, the governor of Massachusetts just said that he's going to sign a bill, and so hopefully, and he thinks he wants to have sports betting up and running in Massachusetts by the NFL season. Which would be really cool. But I'll tell you something, what's really, my view of what's happening right now, it's very, very similar to what was happening in the 90s. And being here in San Francisco, you talk about the gold rush of the internet. It's very similar to me. And when I was sort of cutting my teeth as a venture capitalist, we saw what happened out there. And you had companies like GE and IBM and Microsoft that were the incumbents out there, that were sort of really leading the way for technology. And they should have won the internet. But who won the internet? Guys like Salesforce and Amazon and Facebook and Google and a company that I was an investor in, and Seamless Web and Grubhub today. It's public as Grubhub. But I mean, those kind of companies just won and knocked out a lot of the incumbent players.
Sure.
A number of them come back. But then what's happening now is the same thing. The same kind of thing is happening in sports betting. You've got the MGMs, you got the Caesars, you have the William Hills. And I love Joe Asher and the guys at William Hill, and I hope they win. But there will be Amazons, Facebooks, Googles, et cetera, that will come in. And those are the kind of companies, and those are the entrepreneurs that we at 76 Capital want to invest in. And we want to get behind those guys. And in some days, maybe we'll partner with some of the incumbents, but at the same time, maybe we'll knock 1 or 2 off.
Great. I want to get into some of those auxiliary businesses, kind of the fuller ecosystem. Before we do, Brano, not to put you on the spot, so the Niners pick second. Who are we taking? Jimmy Garoppolo's knee. How's the ACL? Okay, so
Nice try.
we talked about state adoption, and obviously this thing is scaling at a crazy pace that I don't think we thought initially was going to. League adoption, team adoption. There are some, fast movers there. Major League Baseball, partnerships with MGM and Caesars, and in other leagues, the NHL also. The NFL, not so much, taking more of a defensive posture. Can you give us a little bit of insight into why that is, and then how does it trickle down to the team level? Do you feel that, and are you guys kind of having to hold up on your investments, or at least the way you're engaging this whole new opportunity?
Yeah, so this touches kind of both sides of my job, if you wish. One is as a pure play tech investor, the other one is obviously part of the organization that it itself is part of at 32. So second point first, look, we are limited in terms of what we can do being part of the NFL. The clear rules around gaming and gambling. As an organization, most likely will never own a book, right, for example. Having said that, there are clear opportunities. Personally, my view is that market is absolutely big, and it's probably going to be bigger than anybody thinks. But I think in the same way, it's probably going to take a little bit longer than everybody thinks, right? Because it's trickling down to the states. You start hitting the legislature. If you really cut it through, California and New York is 30% of the market, right? West Virginia, great that they are developing quickly and rapidly. Does that make a difference in terms of the market size? We'll see. This certainly sets the great precedents. But the point being is that the market is big. It's going to take a while for it to crystallize. I think there's still more questions than answers, which creates challenges but opportunities as well for some of the smart investors that get in early. I think the gambling and gaming for us as an organization is interesting, more as a second order interest. What we're focused on is what does it do to fan engagement, to our base business, right? What does it do to advertising, to marketing? As consumption of our sports and sports as a whole continues to shift to more of an interactive viewing, I think time of linear TV is pretty much gone, quite frankly. What does something like gaming do to our core audience, and how do we think about these trends long term as competition for eyeballs continues to rage, quite frankly. So that I think is an interesting opportunity. I don't have answers for anyone here today. I don't think anybody does, quite frankly, because the market just continues to evolve very, very rapidly. But certainly something that we keep a very, very close eye to.
So Wayne, let's talk about at the league and team level. Who are the folks out there that are doing some pretty interesting things, cutting edge things? Obviously, our friends down in DC at Monumental being one of them. Can you speak to Monumental or others in that space across the sports world who are maybe bleeding edge or trying to be the pioneers in this?
Yeah, I think that you talk about Monumental and the Leonsis family and what they're doing is really interesting. They also are owners of the Arena League, so we. I like what they're doing, how they're thinking about it right now, and how they're thinking about betting, and that's exciting. I mean, they've done some things on TV, but at the same time, fortunately at 76 Capital, we don't have. Well, I wouldn't say fortunately. I wouldn't mind owning the 49ers, but we don't have those restrictions, right? So we can make investments and make a lot of bets and find these entrepreneurs. So we're doing that right now. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at different areas and making investments in different areas. So we've looked at sort of from the betting perspective, we've broken it down into 4 areas, right? So we look to make investments in the data collection side. So actually putting sensors and balls and bats in different places to be able to collect all this data, and then be able to look at the analytical side of it. So what do you do with all that data, and actually be able to break down, get that information and bring it all the way down to the fact where you can actually do player prop level bets. And that's a company, actually one of our companies that we're invested in is called Swish Analytics, and it's here in San Francisco, and they're working with the Sacramento Kings, and they have this game called Bet Rush, which is right in a suite in Sacramento at the arena, which is pretty cool. And it's not for money, but it's for fun, and hopefully in 18 months or so, whenever the legislature here does their thing, it'll be for real. But then we also look at the broadcasting side, and that's where you're talking about where the Leonsis are playing, and where we're playing with a company called VSIN. It's VSIN, and that's a company that was started by Brent Musburger, the legendary broadcaster from ESPN and ABC and CBS, and did all those amazing things over his career, but now is really focused on creating the CNBC of the sports betting industry. Yep. And being behind that is really important. And also just thinking about from the broadcasting side, being a broadcaster, that's a whole different world today. You have to know so much more, or not really talk about the things that you weren't able to talk about in the past, but now you can. So that's going to be an interesting market, and we're investors in that space as well.
This is great. So I'm most fascinated not by those who are going to come in, the European operators who are going to take the VIG, but let's find out about the cool auxiliary technologies that are going to form the entire ecosystem. Brano, I'll turn to you now. What are you seeing in terms of that auxiliary ecosystem that has raised your eyebrows?
Well, one thing that I think is underreported is just the impact that 5G is going to have on the entire ecosystem. As an operator of a venue and a team, connectivity is a big, or historically has been a big constraint to adoption of technologies. Just imagine a day when Wi-Fi becomes obsolete, connectivity just falls in a background, nobody even thinks about it. All the phones we have today, the size of those phones, the reason why they're so big is there's a lot of memory and a lot of compute in your phones that necessitates size of the phone and form factor we all have. Think about when that goes to the network, right? When now all of a sudden you have this huge proliferation of form factors. What does that do to your wearables? Form factor, are there a new set of glasses and overlays? What does it do to kind of interactive nature of how future fans, consume our sport both in venue and at home? I'm just amazed by what, again, my little kids will what sports they will consume and how they will consume it. I think that's it's a huge opportunity.
I mean, it's amazing. The NFL itself just announced their partnership for 5G with Verizon. And so Verizon just paid some more money to the NFL. The NFL's so good at that. They're so good at getting partnerships, right? And you guys get all the money, so that's good. It's a good thing. But it's amazing. I mean, 5G, I'm sure you saw at the Super Bowl in Atlanta, I mean, they did their whole thing on 5G and just, literally playing Xbox and no console, right? I mean, it's kind of what Google just announced last week as well. But I mean, it's amazing when all the guts are on the network, right? So that's going to be a big deal, and that'll also not only just affect the fans and the viewing and the engagement side, but the players, the coaches, the broadcasters, the bookies, the sports books themselves, to get all this data, have all that data sent back very, very quickly. To have, we were investors in a company called Shot Tracker, and we're able to track over 120 seconds. Every 120 movements, a second from every basketball player on that court. To be able to get that information and not only then be able to then present that to the coach who can then decide, like, this is the best five, just by looking at the numbers now, which is a whole different way of looking at the data. But then also having that data be then sent to a data analytics company, which then would send it to a bookmaker, and you can have amazing prop bets from that.
So the 5G piece is fascinating to me, but it goes back to a question we were talking about before the panel. Does sports betting save linear television? Can this happen on your phone via 5G? You're live betting, you're watching the game, it's all happening on your device? Or is it still most optimized to watch on your TV via linear broadcaster?
Look, I'm clearly biased. I think TV is not going anywhere. Certainly not in the near to midterm. I do think that a time of, again, linear watching where you come home, maybe invite a couple of friends and you watch game from the start to the end with certain advertising in between, that's largely gone. So I think it actually augments it. There's going to be a whole other set of use cases where people on the go, right? Where they want to have a bite-sized replay of the game, will be able to do that, and already are in a lot of ways. And then there's a whole set of, and this kind of ties back into the data and gambling, these kind of intelligent overlays, right? Where you're not just watching the game itself, but there's a whole set of customized overlays, for lack of better words, that perhaps show statistics of a player in real time. Maybe it's, vitals, right? Or, statistics that allow you to interact in real time. Perhaps bet money, perhaps play with your friends for bragging rights. That has a way to completely reinvigorate engagement rates for sports like ours.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and it's really fascinating to see. I mean, actually, the company I was just mentioning, Shot Tracker, I mean, talk about this whole AR app that we have right now where you literally could just put up and say, there's Scott, right? Scott has 20 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, by just looking at by putting your phone up and at him. It's amazing that you're able to do that kind of stuff today. And so that's where things are really going, and you're going to be sitting in the seats of whether it's Levi Stadium or other places, you're going to have all the data, and then you're going to be able to make it actionable and do something with it. And that's probably betting where you're going to go with that.
So we were afforded a couple extra minutes. Thanks, guys. But 2 minutes left. I want both of you to take a minute, parting shot, but within your parting shot, we're back here next year. What has happened the next 12 months, maybe the next 24 months that has really surprised us? Give me, a bet.
Well, I think the one thing you'll see is that we'll have about 20 states at this point next year that will have legal betting in America. So it's happening so fast, and so that will really start to move this market. And I don't think we really sized the market earlier, but we're talking about a market that was about a $5 billion market in Nevada last year. And now that market, as guys like Adam Silver and others have said, whether it was on 60 Minutes this past Sunday, or if you also watch this Showtime show, which is actually a good show to watch called Action. It's on Showtime. It's a 4-part docu-series on sports betting. But people are talking about this market going from $5 billion all the way up to $500 billion. So it's a really big market, and we want to find the entrepreneurs out there that are going after it, and we want to get behind them and help them and work with them and invest in them and build great companies.
Brano, floor is yours.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of incremental improvements, obviously. One that I think could, to kind of more closely answer your question, could, I don't know, surprise us if it happens, but certainly can make a pretty significant difference is, one of the large, Big Four or Big Five, however you want to kind of tech companies making a much bigger move into this this ecosystem, whether it's a formal sponsorship rights or tying into some specific program product. You mentioned Google is making some headwinds there on the gaming side. So I think if that happens, again, I think anybody, given the audience here, would be surprised, but that has a potential to just change what the landscape looks like for many, many years to come.
That's great. If there's someone here from Twitter, I want to make a sports bet through Twitter over the next 12 months. Let's make that happen. Anyway, Brano, Wayne, you guys were awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.